Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to Stranded Survivors. My name is Matt, and I will be the lonely co host today. So, Jericho got called impromptu on a work trip. And, it's kind of cool because his work trips consist of going out into the woods and going on like a 30-mile hike with a bunch of kids and then, teaching them life skills and stuff. Then they got to hike all the way back. So he's going to be exhausted. He's out doing his thing, dying in the woods, and I am going to go rogue this week. Um, he probably will listen eventually, but he's not listening live, I guess, because he's just a punk. I don't know if he has service out in the middle of the woods. They're like genuinely out like 20 miles into a state forest. So at least they usually go out there, but he'll probably listen in a week or two. So Jericho, I'm going rogue. Um, this week, I want to make sure that I hit all the things, even though Jericho's not here. So, for starters, I got Will in the booth with me. So, Will, thanks for not making me do this by myself. Shout out to you. Um, this past weekend, knocked graduation out of the park, got it out of the way. So, I got my fancy piece of paper, and I don't plan on quitting my current job, but I am definitely looking at what has changed. Job market opens up extra doors. So, shout out to my current employer if you're currently listening. I'm not planning on leaving, but hey, you never know. So, all jokes aside, last week I want to make sure I get the comments because I'm always real bad about that. So, last week, Jericho's ADHD took over, and we had a handful of people comment on it. We had Jasper G said, "Great episode, love the episode. Sorry for not joining, haven't got around to it. Being tested right now for school." I feel you on that, and I hope those all went well for you, Jasper. I'm happy that you guys have posted another great episode for the art community. Thank you very much, man. We really appreciate that. You are a legend. Colton B, I know you. Stranded in a boss fight. Let's go. You'll love to see it. Yeah, man, it's gonna be solid. I think we'd have it covered. And you know what? I'm gonna talk a little bit about that today because I'm diving into the lore later. So we're gonna talk about one boss fight in particular that I think would be most likely for our community. Um, let's see. Joe. Joe said, Cowboy here. I still listen, just less active in the Discord. Still listening though. Hey man, I appreciate you as always. We would love to see you in the Discord more though. I understand you got life stuff going on, so whenever you are ready to come back, we are happy to have you, my man. Hail Hydra, the man, the myth, the legend. I mean, I guess if I'm stranded with nothing but my bare fists, yeah, I'd probably lose to a gorilla. And of course, I'll forever support y'all, and I've even told people about your podcast. I don't know if they listen though. And Matt, if you had to choose, would you rather die by getting thrown off an RG into the volcano or die of starvation on a raft out on water? Hail Hydra, why do you hate me? What happened? Oh, gee whiz. I guess I would rather get thrown into a volcano because to be real with you, I get real hangry real quick, and I don't want to be around myself when I'm hangry, especially if I have to starve to death. Gee whiz. Yeah, get that bad stuff over with. Um, and Jericho, you've been called out a lot by Matt. Why not get back at him and do a water creatures tier list? Whoa, 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 Hail Hydra, chill out. I don't know why you're mad at me, but I still love you though. Jericho, this is coming from Equifox. Jericho will be stranded if he pulls another sneaky little rat stunt like that again. Yeah, you got you guys good. But you know what? You guys were good sports about it, and I appreciate that. Will the Thrill, never stranded. Great job on the boss fight, or maybe we should call it a boss sneak instead. I am the Painted Riders. Can't wait to see how this boss war turns out. Ah, yeah. Yeah, you tell them, Will. You put them in their place. Just kidding, just kidding. Tyler, trying to catch back up. I've been really busy with soccer and church stuff, and I come home from school with a headache from a stupid kid that loves to make random noises that annoy me, and he won't stop if I ask. So I don't listen to anything when I get home, so I can have my headaches go away. Hope you guys have an amazing day, and may God bless both of you two's future. Thank you very much, Tyler. It's very kind of you. I'm sorry that you have somebody that's bugging you at school, though. Hopefully, you're able to get like a new seating chart or something like that. That way you don't have to deal with the extra stress there. I don't know. Um, I made sure to use as many letters as possible again. They make it possible for a reason. Tyler, you go the extra mile, and I'm sure your teachers love you for it. Drew, great episode. Love the in game talk. Once Ragnarok drops, I hope we see more, especially if Matt plans on playing. There you go. I commented that you did, Drew. I really do plan on going hard when Ragnarok comes out. All the research I had to do for this lore episode has really sparked a lot of stuff for me. So I'm ready to get back into it, but I want to save all that love for Ragnarok. I don't want to waste it on a different map right now. Um, Dad of twins, dead nart, dead narts. Yup, I'm backwards like the dead narts. I don't know what you're trying to say, Dad of twins. My brain's not braining right now, but he's backwards like that. Yes, Mr. Slippers, I still listen. Oh, look at that, Jericho. He responded. Shout out to you, Dad of twins. And last but not least, we had Lachlan. First Connect. Love this episode. Thank you for joining my Discord. My YouTube channel has 1.1K views. Let's go. Please, if you have not subscribed to my channel, please do. Thanks for making episodes Locky out. So, you guys heard it here, folks. That's the plug of the day. If you have not followed Lachlan's YouTube page, go check that stuff out. So, those are the comments for last week. And the last thing I want to make good on before I dive into why ARC is ARC in the first place is the dossier. This is sponsored by Glazed Donut because I kind of forgot to do the Tuso. Remember, I got distracted the last time. We got like 3 words into the Tuso one, and then all of a sudden I went crazy, and I don't even remember what we switched it to. But anyway, he wanted the Tuso. So, the Tusoteuthis vampirus from the Cretaceous period. It's a real thing? I thought it was fake. I expected it to be like a mythical creature or something. Oh man, this just got way scarier. That's a carnivore, no kidding, and it's aggressive. Also, no kidding. The Tusoteuthis vampirus is a very aggressive water predator, approximately 30 feet long. That is not as big as I expected to hear, but that's like, for my friends across the pond, it's like 10 point something meters. Tusoteuthis is a terror of the deep. Once it grabs its prey, it slowly crushes it into submission while using its talons on its tentacles to siphon and drink the victim's blood. Tusoteuthis is a terrifying opponent. It drinks blood? Oh, geez. Toothus is a terrifying opponent for several reasons. Firstly, it grabs slowly renders its victims unconscious, so death isn't the only concern. Second, its vampiric blood drain instantly revitalizes it even during combat. Finally, if Tusoteuthis is losing the fight, it sprays a cloud of ink into the surrounding water, blinding its attackers to cover a sneaky escape. Oh man. Domesticated. One of the major benefits of taming Tusoteuthis is harvesting, I can't talk right now, is harvesting its ink. Unlike normal ink, Tusoteuthis ink is very oily and can even be refined into fuels such as gasoline. Between that and Tusoteuthis' distinctive capability to grab and carry large creatures underwater, it makes for an excellent aquatic tame despite its slower speed. Love Helena. So this thing is scary with a capital S and a couple extra Y's at the end. It is the Giga of the ocean, if you will. And the thing's a pain in the butt to breed. It's a pain in the butt to tame. But once you get one, it's okay. It's a lot easier to breed than it is to tame. But the taming process, you have to essentially sacrifice whatever tame you want to take down there, like a Meg or something like that. Let that bad boy snatch it up, and then you're gonna have to hand feed it black pearls this whole time. So it is a 2 out of 10. Would not recommend tame in my opinion, but you know what? Those of you that are brave enough for it, it's completely worth it. But in my opinion, I'm just gonna wait for you to tame it, and then I'm gonna trade you some ingots or something like that because I am not about that noise. But yeah, that's the Tuso. Absolute must have for any tribe that wants to do stuff in the ocean, but you won't catch me dead taming it. Nice try. So this episode, I wanted to do this on an episode where I would be able to have Jericho with me because he knows nothing about the lore. So I genuinely hope that he is going to go through and listen to this episode because, in my opinion, the lore is very important for a video game. You need to know why you're playing it. And in my opinion, it makes it a lot more fun if I know, why things are happening around me. It's relatively strange, don't you think, to just wake up in your underwear with a raptor 4 feet away from you that rips your face off, and then you wake up again in your underwear in a different spot? I mean, that might be an average Friday night for some of us, but for most people, that is not, you know. And Nettie the Noodle makes probably the most comprehensive video that I have ever seen about the lore in this game. It goes through, it's where I got most of my information. About 75% of what I know from the lore is from Nettie the Noodle's video, and the other, 25% plus change, if you want to give 110% effort, is from exploring and reading the notes myself and stuff like that. So again, go check out Nettie the Noodles video. I want to start off with that because it's going to give you way more information than I do, and it presents it in a way more cinematic way. Um, that being said, if you were not aware, the lore of this game is told to us in the way of the Explorer notes. So every time you pick up one of those Explorer notes, it gives you just a little piece of the puzzle and fills in a little bit of information, sometimes about the Thames, sometimes about people that were there before us. But the main, and my notes are all crazy here. It's like a big old spider web, so you're gonna have to bear with me and try to follow this. But there was an asteroid that hit Earth, and it wasn't like, a crazy big asteroid that killed off all the dinosaurs, but it was a pretty decent sized one. It had Element in it. And for those of you that don't know, Element is like the big old self-replicating power source that you get from boss fights. The refined form is what you get from boss fights, but we'll get into some of the unrefined forms later. But long story short, there were two factions that controlled the Earth at this time, okay? There was the United Republic of Earth, which are like a bunch of scientists. They wanted to deal with cloning, making hybrids. They would have been cool with like cyborgs and stuff like that. And then there was the Terran Federation. They wanted the world to be better, and they wanted to, advance civilization, make us more able to inhabit other planets and things like that. But they wanted to keep humans kind of the way they were and sort of prevent all of that, you know, big old science mumbo jumbo that they had going on there at the United Republic of Earth. Obviously, as politics evolve and just like Star Wars and stuff like that, turmoil is going to happen when you have major differences in ideology there. Um, these weapons that were crafted were actually able to use element in a way that they could weaponize it. There was one man that was behind all this weaponization. He was like the main engineer and scientist. His name was Santiago. Santiago ended up making some pretty sweet weapons that basically the best way I could describe it is like 1,000 nukes going off, and it started doing some pretty massive extinctions. It poisoned the earth, and with element being self-replicating, it ended up creating a whole lot of problems there. So the two different factions decided that the best solution at this time was to team up. They went through and they made pretty much like, the best way I could describe it is like Noah's Ark, kind of, if you're familiar with that story. And this was the Genesis Project. So their goal was to take pretty much all the species they could save, all the plants, all the animals, whatever they could get together, throw it on this ship, and launch that bad boy at light speed through the galaxy until they can find a new habitable planet. Um, the United Republic of Earth, on the other hand, they went through and they wanted to make a bunch of these arcs. The arcs were their way of testing out what is the best way to cause humans to evolve at a quicker pace. How can we get humans to become better suited to not only survive on this messed up Earth that we have now, but also find more habitable planets quickly? If we can handle the harsh environments of Mars, for conversation, we theoretically could live there. If we could breathe through the gases, we could figure something out. We could live on Venus, I guess, if you didn't melt. But, you know, we would have to make some serious evolutionary changes for that to even be possible. That being said, these two projects were sort of going on like simultaneously, and both of them ended up starting to use cloning. So there's a part of your brain that Nettie goes on to explain way better than I even could. But long story short, let's just go under the understanding here that there's a section of your brain that they were able to copy. And once they copied this brain, they uploaded it into a computer system, and then they were able to basically resurrect you at any point in time. So I could resurrect my friend who passed away last week, or I could resurrect an ancient Roman from the year, 8,000 BC. There were endless possibilities. So all of the survivors at that point, they figured out they could use them as guinea pigs to see how the ecosystem would balance best with humans and how they could repopulate the world. Um, we talked about Santiago earlier. Now, Santiago is those of you that have seen anything on Arc 2, Vin Diesel, Santiago, that's the character we're talking about here. He was that guy, built the element weapons like I talked about. He doomed the Earth. He single-handedly basically crafted the weapons that made it so Earth will never be habitable again unless there's some major changes. Um, However, he was killed at the end of the war. That's a spoiler alert there. So Santiago was killed off very end of the war, and then they brought him back. But they brought him back with some fake memories, and they were basically manipulating him to build the rest of the Genesis ship. So they needed his brain, they needed his expertise on element and tech equipment, but they implanted a little bit of worms into his head there, metaphorically speaking, of course, to make him see things their way and be a little bit more compliant, if that makes sense. As time went on, he realized there's some issues going on with his file. There were data problems. He confronted his partner Uma, who flat out told him, like, hey, this is what happened. We changed your memories. We implanted some fake stuff in there. There's a lot going on behind the scenes, and Uma was pretty blunt about it. The other person that was working with them was named Yankee, and Yankee did not take so kindly to the fact of it because, if Santiago had this happen to him, then that meant other people had it happen to them. And eventually he was able to find out that this happened to his wife and his child as well. So these people were able to take Yankee's wife and child and throw them into whatever simulation they wanted, resurrect them whenever they wanted. They could do whatever with this child's DNA and his wife's DNA, and that absolutely did not sit well with him. So he wanted to figure out a way to get this taken care of and get it all removed from the system. But as you can imagine, it wasn't that easy. Long story short, I've said that so many times this episode. I'm so sorry, but to make the story a little bit quicker here, Yankee ends up just acting weird. Things start changing. He starts acting a little bit more distant, not communicating with people. And Santiago goes to check on him, being a good friend. And when Santiago does this, Yankee explodes, like literally completely explodes, vaporizes the entire room, kills both of them. Um, and unfortunately, this isn't the end of Santiago's story yet again. He was brought back to life by Uma, who was able to sort of rewind time, push it forward, rewind time, push it forward. They forced him to relive this death thousands and thousands and thousands of times because he had something whispered to him. Yankee whispered something to him right before they exploded, and nobody was able to figure out what it was. So I never quite gathered what it was that Yankee had said to him. But whatever it was, it concerned Uma enough that she forced Santiago to relive this death countless times over the process of trying to figure it out. Um, but the ARC overseers, the people that are sort of overseeing the ARC project here, they agreed to themselves ascend and become Homo Deus. Those of you that don't know what Homo Deus is, we'll get into that in a little bit later. But they essentially become beyond human, and they are kind of like Mr. Meeseeks. If you've ever seen that episode of Rick and Morty where, Mr. Meeseeks has to accomplish his task and then they die, it's basically the same thing. They have this task that they're given. Once they complete it, it completely erases what was their mind, what was their body, their brain, and they completely lose themselves at the end of it and basically die off. They become a non-communicative life force at the end of their lifespan there. Um, and, that's kind of a big ask of someone. You're asking them to give up everything they had. If there is an afterlife, you're asking them to give that up as well, because all of them is going to become this Homo Deus species. And their mission was to perfect humans, give them the best chance they possibly could to figure out, what combination of people, what personality traits, what skill sets, what body types, all of these things. They tried to figure out what is the perfect set up to help humans repopulate this messed up planet, like we said. So they gave them these implants, these little like stone diamonds that you have in your wrist there. And it is kind of like a Google Pixel Bud, if you've ever seen those. Gives you the ability to translate any languages that you hear in real time. Of course, there's, context stuff that won't translate. Netty goes into that as well, but for the most part, you'll be able to understand people. And this is how they're able to start bringing people back. They bring back, later on, there is somebody from the Roman Empire that they bring back. There's somebody from China that they bring back, multiple Americans, Australians. There's all sorts of different people that they bring back, and they're all able to communicate because of these implants, which is kind of cool. Um, However, anyone who's ever played Ark, you already know this is a thing, and you know for a fact that it's just a common thing. When you start to do well and you start to accomplish one thing in the arc, it seems like they throw something at you. You know what I mean? You're doing well, you're building, you're crafting, and all of a sudden, boom, pack of raptors comes and gets you. But you know what? You fight them off. And then you know what? Boom, pack of aloes. Like it just seems to step its game up and challenge you more and more. And this is actually addressed in the lore, how the expectations are constantly being changed, the difficulty is being raised, the quote unquote goalposts are being moved to force you to continue to better yourself and adapt, learn something new. So we're going to start off in aberration here. So aberration was, if I remember correctly, one of the first arcs here. So the United Republic of Earth had specifically, I can't tell if I'm having issues or if everybody else in the Discord's having issues. If you can't hear me in the Discord right now, sorry folks, it's acting goofy tonight. Anyway, the arcs were made, like I said, to test people, but the aberration arc was specifically testing people from similar lifestyles, similar timelines, even people that possibly knew each other. So you're looking at everybody who is an advanced human, quote unquote. They're fighter pilots, they're engineers, they all knew tech equipment. These are all people that are geared in this technologically advanced world to absolutely thrive. They ended up creating the tribe called the Tech Tribe. Go figure, right? And the Tech Tribe created a fantastic little suit. This suit gave them the ability to hover, fly around, all the cool things that a tech suit provides. Anybody who's ever used one of those, or if you've ever played Genesis, you know what a tech suit is. There was a pilot in the tech tribe. Her name was Diana, and she tried to fly off. She tried to explore what's beyond the oceans here, or not the oceans, you know what I mean. She tries to explore the edges, and she hits the boundary. She realizes we've all hit that little glass dome that gives you like the rainbow mirage looking thing. She bumps into that and realizes that they seem to be trapped by something. She brought this information back to the tribe. They all got pretty salty about it, and they decided they wanted to put a bomb in the obelisk to blow up the overseers that were holding down the arcs here. Everybody was teleported off to the boss fight. They got absolutely dookied on, but they blew up the Overseer's platform. So it was not a cut and dry, not a beautiful fight. Lots of issues that went on there, but at the end of it, they blew up the Overseer's platform, and those of them that were able to get back realized that radiation was really quickly burning the surface, and they all needed to get underground really, really quickly. So everybody had to flee underground. The surface of aberration was jacked up, and this was just it was not good. This was the first time that they had a major problem. So then we jumped to the island real quick. We talked about the Roman legionnaire. His name was Gaius Marcellus Nerva. This guy is basically, I don't even know, Alexander the Great, kind of. He's a military genius. He captured Helena. He recruited Rockwell, Edmund Rockwell. Most of you probably know who he is, but if not, we'll get into him in one sec. And he basically used his soldiers to kill off every single dino that Mei Yin ever had tamed at that point. He then convinced Rockwell that the obelisk had god power. No, he was convinced by Rockwell, I'm sorry, that the obelisk had god power for his army. So this was the beginning where Rockwell is manipulating people. Rockwell is a British scientist. He's an inventor. He becomes completely obsessed with Element and the power that he can get from it. Once Nerva recruited him, that was like the biggest mistake Nerva could have made at that time. And then eventually, Rockwell convinced Nerva that it was a good idea to go into the tech cave. And any of you who have gone into the tech cave knows that that's probably not a good idea. Um, we all know Helena. We just talked about her earlier. She's Australian, she's the biologist. She focuses most of her time on basically the ecosystem and how unnatural it is, how everything grows at weird rates, how strange creatures that have been extinct for thousands and millions of years are now all walking around together. She's focused more on the animals and the plant life, my kind of person. Whereas Rockwell is over here, this 1800 mad scientist, is trying to figure out how to make himself stronger, manipulating Nerva, that Roman legionnaire who really just wants to have a good army. And, you know, I Jericho's kind of like Gaius Nerva here. He's got that PvP mindset of we're just going to either steamroll you or we're going to figure it out. And maybe not so much Jericho. Maybe that's more of an Equifax and Boogles thing now. Yeah, that's right, you punks. Um, But we talked about Mei Yin also. She's a beast master, okay? She had tamed a whole bunch of dinosaurs. She had this beloved raptor. Oh man, what's his name? Woosway? He had she had Woosway, her raptor, a whole bunch of other tames. Went into this fight with Nerva. She acted as a mercenary. So she was doing like mercenary work, she was doing protection missions. And after Nerva wiped down every single one of her dinos, she took off on Wootsway, her raptor, and Nerva eventually hunted her down, killed her raptor, and it was awful. It was just a terrible time for her. She was now alone, and she swore revenge on Nerva. So she, at this point, has made up her mind, I'm gonna kill that guy. How dare you? And she was ready to go full John Wick on him. Now the tech cave they had to go through, they had to fight the other three, they had to fight the three main bosses, get the three artifacts, the big boss trophies, all that fun stuff. You know what I mean? And once they do that, they go into the tech cave. And I'm going to give you guys a second to guess. He went in on foot with a bunch of foot soldiers with like pikes and swords and guns and all these things. They went in with a few tames, handful of things, but most of their men were on foot. How you think they did? Yeah, you're probably right. They all died. So pretty much all of Nerva's men got wiped out. Nerva and Rockwell survived, but they took off a little bit further. They were trying to dip out on them. Um, the Mei Yin, she comes up, she sees Helena tied up outside the tech cave, saves her. She hears that Nerva and Rockwell are in there. She's not going to let that slide. So she starts to head in and she finds Nerva. Rockwell, he's gone. But she finds Nerva. They start wrestling around, and Nerva takes a knife right into the stomach. And in the process, she ends up smashing down in the console there, and it messed everything up. It ascended them both. They both got taken out to Aberration. And when they appeared in Aberration, Nerva was very, very much dead. So that sucks for Nerva, but Mei Yin at that point accidentally ascended into aberration. So now we got to bounce back to Scorched Earth real quick. See, it's getting a little confusing now because we're doing all sort of bouncing here. Again, go check out Netty the Noodles video. He did a great job explaining it. I'm just trying to sort of remake his content in a better, not a better way, in a verbal way rather than a cinematic way. That's what I meant to say. So Scorched, we go to Scorched here. They at this point, this was a Genesis simulation. So they're trying to figure out at this point, what kind of stuff is going to work out once what planets can we live on? Can we live on a desert planet? Can we live on this? Can we live on that? So the Genesis ship is testing all of this stuff, and they even went as far as to test the magmasaur. So they're seeing how these hypothetical and fantasy creatures will interact in this ecosystem that they're building. We know that the obelisks, they powered the arcs, and the survivors that were resurrected, they could so at this point, they can resurrect survivors. Sorry, the obelisks powered the ark. They could resurrect survivors, and they could resurrect the best and the brightest over the past thousands of years. So in this arc, they're looking for basically what combination of the best and brightest minds work with which combination of animals. But it seemed like no matter what animals they used, there just wasn't something that worked out. But for some reason, dinos did. Dinos just had a good balance with people in this ecosystem. So they rolled with it. And here we saw John DeKaya, the Apache Native American outlaw. He is also from the 1800s, just like Rockwell is. And this guy, he's an outlaw. He's got a band of outlaws with him. They robbed survivors. They roamed the desert there, and eventually he stumbled upon a city. This city was run by a lady named Raya. She's an Egyptian priestess from ancient Egypt, and, he kind of thought she had a Cleopatra thing going on, and, he had a little thing for her. So he decided, and men, hear me out here, how many of us have had this feeling? He decided that he wanted to be a good guy, change himself completely, and settle down with this lady for the better. And, behind every great man is a better woman. So, or, behind every great man is a better spouse, for that matter. So Raya, the Egyptian priestess, she led the settlement of survivors. Like I said, she also fell for John, and a little goo goo gaga love story there. But they got attacked first by a bunch of bugs, kind of like the swarm of locusts, and then they got attacked by wyverns. And it just seemed to be this like never-ending onslaught. And they could tell that it meant something, but they didn't know what exactly. Was it a sign from the gods that they needed to ascend? Was it a sign that they were all doomed? Was it a test of their battle capabilities? They couldn't figure out what exactly it meant, but they knew that they needed to get out of here. Um, John knew a safe spot. He had wandered the deserts for God knows how long. He knew all the corners of it, and he told Raya of the safest spot he could think of. He took her over there. They took off on one of their tames. But unfortunately, that spot was already overrun by wyverns. They tried to wait it out underground, but they really couldn't wait it out long enough. And John ended up sacrificing himself to save Raya. She took off running, she managed to get away, and she also snagged a wyvern egg in the process. So she started raising her own wyvern. After she got one, we all know how that goes. She was able to steal more eggs, and before you know it, she had a little wyvern army. Um, she decided that she wanted to do the most anime thing ever and was all upset that John died. So she flew off into the mountains and she's like, you know what, don't bother me. I'm gonna go Master Roshi, and instead of an island, I'm living in a mountain. And nobody really heard from her much. And she sort of would dip in and out of the desert, helping people fight things, would save people as needed, and then would disappear again to the mountains. So some people thought she was a deity, some people thought she was, just a crazy person, but either way, nobody knew what was going on, and she just sort of disappeared from the face of the earth there. So let's see. Now we got to go to aberration. Okay, got to go back to aberration, I think. So after the island, we saw, remember Mei Yin, she accidentally ascended to aberration. So Nerva was dead, laying there on the ground, and she's sitting on the surface of aberration. All of a sudden, sun starts to come up, and those of us that have played aberration have all ventured out to the surface. We know exactly what happened. That guy completely lit on fire. So she starts running away like Chronicles of Riddick as she's trying to get away from all the firelight. And she ends up fleeing underground. What else are you gonna do on Aberration? She continues to tame her dinos. She rebuilds her dino army. She gets this whole beast tamer thing going again in a whole new arc, which good for her. Shout out to that. But she gets captured again. But this time she gets captured by the Tech tribe. So way better people to be captured by compared to Nerva, right? The Tech tribe was that was Diana, that was Santiago, that was the people that were experienced with this tech material and were trying to figure out a way to save the world at this point. So she blended in quite well with them, didn't trust them at first, took a while, but eventually Diana ended up getting through to her, and she tried to say that she felt more at home with beasts and didn't really want to be in the tribe. But eventually, her and Diana became inseparable, and they sort of, it's not outright stated, but it is certainly implied that they fell in love at that point. So they did everything together, went on missions together, did all their things. And one day they went out trying to get element shards and they ended up getting attacked. So everybody except for Diana, Mei Yin, and one of their other friends, his name is Halstead. Those are the only three people left. Everybody else gets picked off. It's pretty unfortunate and pretty gruesome. But Halstead starts not feeling so good. And anyone can guess on aberration if you spend too much time up on the surface and your belly's hurting. Yeah, it's time to lay down. Halstead gave birth. It was a beautiful baby Reaper, and he died horribly. But Diana and Mei Yin were able to get away. So good for them. They escaped death one more time, right? Now, whoa, where did we jump? I didn't tell myself which page to go to now. So, at this point, Helena and Rockwell end up finding each other, right? They both end up getting in. As they end up connecting, they are attacked by a bunch of seekers. Now, Helena is known for being pretty well composed, right? She gives all of these very well, eloquent, well written dossiers to us. And she's able to talk about Tuso Toothus Vampirus and come up with names like that, right? But a seeker, she came up with the beautiful name Flying Squid Bat Murder Monster, right? So they're running away from these flying squid bat murder monsters, pooping their pants probably, leaving little dookie trails behind. And they are saved by a wonderful warrior in a tech suit. And this time wasn't Diana, but it was Mei Yin. So she agreed to take them to the tech tribe's base. She was not pumped about Rockwell being there because Rockwell was with Nerva, and Nerva was, the devil. And Rockwell didn't want her to be there as well because Rockwell was convinced that she was a cannibal. She was a monster and that she pretty much was a beast. So Rockwell and her had a little bit of beef going on. Um, Eventually, they decided Aberration, probably not your forever home, right? So they wanted to ascend off of Aberration. They wanted to get their thing going, move on to the next place, but Rockwell did not. Okay. There's way too much power to be had here. The element, all of the stuff going on, there was just way too much for him. He wanted to experiment more and he got angry. He got like big mad. He got a little bit scared that they were going to take it away from him. He was secretly experimenting with element. He started experimenting on tames. He took a beautiful little glow pet and injected it with liquid element, and it ended up turning into this like freakish tentacle monster, and it had to be put out of its misery, if I remember correctly. Let's see, it was it Mayan or Diana? One of the two basically figured out that he was doing it, put the tame down, ended up giving him some crap. They kept him on a pretty short leash, but they're not very smart apparently because he was able to distract them. And while they were distracted with a little side project he created, he started experimenting on himself with the liquid. He figured out a way to turn the element into a liquid form. And then, of course, what's he going to do once he figures out how to make liquid element? Injected it himself. So this guy's shooting up element, trying to figure out ways to make himself all powerful, and he ends up turning into this freakish tentacle boss, like this big old monster. Those of you that have done the boss fight, you know what's up. Helena, Mayin, and Santiago, they break into the station. They're trying to figure out what's going on in this map. This is all happening simultaneously, mind you. And they find all these pods of dinosaurs, like dinos that are already made, gestated, sitting there waiting to be just dropped down and respawned. There were Reapers in there. There were other survivors in there. There were human beings. So they are seeing potentially clones of themselves, clones of people they know, all just waiting to be dropped on any of these arcs and respawned at any point in time. So, I'm sure that was probably not a very fun experience for them, but they managed to push through. They eventually got to the control room. They were able to shut down the obelisks, and then a whole bunch of Reapers attacked. So, one Reaper, good luck escaping, right? Two Reapers, not gonna happen. Four Reapers, you done messed up, Aaron. So they managed to barely escape. I'm not sure how. They didn't deserve it. At that point, you gotta die. That's what happens in that situation. But I guess not for them. They managed to get out barely. But Rockwell at this time, because remember he was injecting himself with the element like a kookaburra. He starts attacking the city. He's killing everybody, smashing down the buildings, doing all these things. And when Mei Yin gets back there, the unthinkable had happened. Diana was mortally wounded. She was dying. Mei Yin holds her in her arms. They have this, big emotional moment, and Diana died in her arms. So Mayan, she is very rational and calm in the way she handles everything. She totally didn't lose her crap in any way, shape, or form at all, and definitely didn't go banana sandwich, which I would too, no problem there. So she completely loses her crap, and Helena and her went and attacked him being Rockwell, with all of the tames that they had. So they barely beat him. They ended up messing him up, and he falls through the ground into this giant pit. He reintegrates himself with the Ark, and he becomes one with this stream of data. So all of the things happening in the Ark, he literally becomes one with it and is able to integrate himself at any point in time, able to do and manipulate through however he wants. And honestly, it might have been a good situation for him. That sucked and probably hurt and probably was unpleasant, but I'm sure it gave him the ability to stew and build up a lot of his stuff. So then that brings us to the graduate students, quote unquote, right? That's what they were called here. These are five survivors who they all eventually died off. I'm not sure, what exactly their minimal role was, but they all sort of left a little bit of notes. They left some lessons for each other and they helped each other survive. And in some cases, not so much. But it's kind of like the the in between. You know what I mean? We had notes from we had notes from Mayan, we had notes from Helena, Santiago, all these people, and these notes for these people were a little bit less removed, a little bit more like what you would expect to see from people that are currently in the arc. So there was one guy named Rusty. He was a good old Kentucky boy. He ended up falling off a ledge and basically he couldn't walk anymore. His legs back, whatever, he was immobilized, and Boris decided to put him down like Shane did to Otis in The Walking Dead. And then he also ate him Jeffrey Dahmer style. So, yeah, dark twist there, eh? But Boris, he was a little bit psycho. He started hearing voices. It's, unknown whether he started hearing voices before or after he ate Rusty, but either way, the master that lived in his head led him to betray his tribe, kill his tribe mates, and then he got eaten by raptors. Yeah, pretty unfortunate for them. But we had an alternative group here. Amelia was in this trio, and she ended up sacrificing herself to the Nameless to save the group because she had some stuff going on. But she sacrificed herself, saved the group. It was very heroic of her. And Trent and Amamu ended up getting away. But Trent, unfortunately, he got the Halstead treatment and he had a baby. Congratulations to him, but not so much because it killed him. The Reaper that popped out of his chest ended up, it was a bad day. Emamu ended up getting away, and when they got there, they learned that Rockwell was the master that was summoning them. So Emamu was given this choice at this point: either return back to the aberration and face all of the creatures that were killing all of his friends and just go do all that and die there, or face Rockwell. And he ended up just letting Rockwell kill him. So all five of the graduates, they ended up having a bad time. Now, goodness, we skipped a whole bunch of stuff that happened in Scorched Earth, but hey, that's where we went. Remember when I got confused earlier? Yeah, we skipped a bunch of stuff in Scorched Earth. So before this had happened, Helena, she's doing her thing. She's learning about the boundaries, the arcs, how the wildlife works. She's doing her thing. But important to note about Rockwell, before he went into the tech tribe and before he started becoming obsessed with Element, he lied and he killed and he did whatever he could in Scorched Earth to get as much information about Element as he could. He got accepted into this tribe and he stole the artifacts from them. He tried to trigger his own boss fight to ascend and do his own thing, but he got captured by another tribe. And he ended up becoming their doctor because the tribe leader was his wife was pregnant. So he became the doctor for this tribe, earned his trust in there, and then poisoned the entire tribe, killed them all, killed the baby too. Clearly had no problem killing babies to get whatever he needed done. So Rockwell just flat out sucked. And then he started injecting cute little animals with elements. So the dude just was the worst, man. But Helena, was insistent that she needed to go check out this person that lived off in the wyvern god that lived off and protected the desert. She ended up finding Rhea. Rockwell ended up wandering up into the top of the mountain where she was with Rhea. And then that's when Rockwell manipulated Helena into thinking he was a good guy, and that's how he ascended with her to Aberration. So there's the missing piece there. Hopefully that didn't just confuse the crap out of everybody. But now we get through Aberration. Like I said, they uh they confused themselves, they being me. Too bad I'm too lazy to edit this. This is gonna suck. Sorry guys, you're troopers. If you made it this far to my ramble, you're a real trooper. So Extinction. The tech tribe makes their way to Extinction. And if you have never played Extinction, 2 out of 10 would not recommend. It is going to extinct you because it is the worst. Santiago was there. He wanted to build some mechs. Okay, those of you that have not used mechs, think of Gundam suits, big old robots robot humanoids that are big old fighters. They're powered by element though. He decided that if he could build 4 mechs that could power together in like a Power Ranger Megazord type of thing going on, then he would probably be able to fight and conquer whatever this wasteland could throw at them, and they could figure out how to save the world here. But you need 4 mechs, which means you need 4 pilots. So he had to figure out who was going to be the 4 pilots for these 4 machines. Now, Santiago absolutely hated using his own inventions, possibly because of the element wars and everything that happened. But either way, it was, low on his list of priorities. He had no interest in that. So he appointed Helena as pilot number 1 because, Helena was really quick at learning everything. She was good at everything she did. She seemed to have no limits to her skills. And he figured she would, she learned pretty quickly how to use a tech suit, so she'd probably do pretty well with a mech as well. Pilot number 2, one of the last people they had that had real military training was named Kazuma. So he was given the ability to pilot mech number 2 and took that military training in to help sort of coordinate everybody and make everything a little bit smoother. The third mech pilot was the best fighter that they had left in the tribe, and that was Mei Yin. She was an expert at close quarters combat because she did everything from the back of her raptor, right? She was good with lances, she was good with spears, swords. She had all of the melee stuff down. So that was number 3. There was nobody else with real military training. Only one person left in the tribe had any training from the United Republic of Earth, and that was Santiago himself. So my man had no choice, but he had to pilot one of the mechs, right? As they're figuring this out, they're starting to learn how to use them, getting a little better, but not quite good yet. Waves of these corrupted dinos start smashing up into the base, trying to, take out the survivors here. Now, Santiago killed as many as he could, but he knew that if this plan was going to survive, and if the remaining survivors were going to make their way through these Titan fights, then they were going to, well, you know what I mean. If they're going to make their way off of this and fix everything, then they were going to have those other 3 mechs. There was no way that they could lose these mechs right now. So Santiago took the initiative upon himself to kite everything away. Okay. So he kites them all away. They go off, and it's inferred at this point that he's going to get them as far away as he possibly could, take as many out as he can, and then die in the fight there. So, an unfortunate 10,856th end for Santiago, but this time seemingly for real, right? Until Arc 2, which we'll get into that in the next lore episode. But Arc 2, Santiago seems to be back. So we don't know which timeline Santiago it is. We don't know if it's the original Santiago from the Element Wars. We don't know if it's Santiago 2.0 that was given the fake memories, or we don't know if it's Santiago 3.0 from the Tech Tribe. So interesting there, but Arc 2 will probably reveal more if it comes out. Um, so Helena and Mei Yin and Kazuma, they want to go through and they want to continue on with this mission. They have to take out the Titans. And in order to do that, they have to figure out a way to close the gap from that 4th mech because the plan needed 4 mechs. You got to have 4 mechs to have it all work. And now they're down to 3. So Helena and Mei Yin, they got some chemistry going on with each other in their friendship. So they learned all these cool tag team mech wrestling moves and they started coming up with cool names and, you know, doing all these extra special cool tricks. And it was awesome. It allowed them to use their own momentum and things like that to better fight with the mechs, save a little bit of element and fuel and stuff like that, which is cool. So there was that. Kazuma ended up doing his own training to stay sharp on his piloting. And after a while, they found the monoliths. You know, there was that signal. They were told there was a signal in the wasteland, and that was what had been drawing Helena to it. She had to know what was on that signal. They ended up finding the monoliths, and they learned about the reseed protocols and how the ark is intended to crash down onto Earth, and the arks are meant to repopulate the world, and all these things. They learned why the arks were made and how they were these experiments. They got all the information presented to them all at one time. And then there was an artifact in front of them. When they went to grab it, that artifact broke and it left like this little diamond like gemstone type thing. When they touched that raw energy from the broken artifact, it was Helena who touched it, by the way. She started having these visions of these dark beasts. The dark beasts were pretty ominous in nature, very Attack on Titan, and it was, you know, foreboding that the Titans were coming. So the King Titan attacked with all of his little minions there. They killed Kazuma. All the Tech Tribe members that were left were killed. And then once again, Helena and Mei Yin were left. And Mei Yin, it was over, man. The King Titan was about to smash her mech, and she was inches away from death. And Helena decided to take this raw energy diamond and she shoved it into her implant. A very selfless, sacrificial act, and it crippled the Titans. It made the King Titan reel back in pain, and you know, it really did its number on the Titans, and it allowed Mayin to fight back, get the upper hand. She crippled the Titans, killed them off except for the King Titan. Um, and then Helena told Mayin that she needed to deliver her to the tomb because Helena was dying. So May had to use these like scrawled out maps and her knowledge of the server of the Ark. She had to figure out where the tomb was. That's all she knew. So she piloted her mech, carried Helena until it ran out of element. May got attacked. She had a broken arm. She wandered off with a broken arm. She went and mined some element. She tamed a couple managamers. She tamed some thorny dragons, some snow owls. She started building up her dino army again, you know, and she held off the horde. She managed to slaughter some of the titans. Like I said, she at this point, now that she tamed these people, that's when she's killed the lesser titans, right? So she comes back with the element. Helena's body in this cave starts to turn into like this weird bioluminescent glowing light structure. When you start a new game, you see Helena's outline in this blue, like bioluminescent figure. That is what Mei Yin starts to see. So eventually, her body gets brighter and brighter, lights up the whole cave, puts these cool designs on the ceiling, and then she completely disappears. Her entire body is gone. There's not a skeleton, there's not ashes, there's nothing left. It's just she wasn't there. So now Mei Yin is once again alone. This poor girl has everything and everyone taken from her repetitively. And it's wild, you know? She gets attacked one more time. And at this point, she's like, you know what? I'm just going to let it happen. She wanders off into the wasteland. As she's getting attacked, she just embraces the fact that this is it. I'm a goner. I'm about to die. And she gets saved one more time. She gets saved by a familiar face. And that's how she knows she's hallucinating, you know? Sorry, I had to cough. Didn't want to cough in the microphone. So she has to be hallucinating, right? Diana comes out and starts saving her in the middle of the desert, fights off all of these creatures, and then grabs Mei Yin. And guess what? Diana is not a hallucination. She is completely real. So when Helena had turned into light, she disappeared. She started digging through the protocol, and apparently it was a fluke one-off thing. She managed to resurrect Diana. She chose Diana. She got Diana right there close to her. And then she sort of The video described it as words being written on the back of her head that she could see. So Diana knew which direction to go, and she just continued to follow the voice that was guiding her. It was helping her stay alive. It showed her where Santiago's body was. She buried Santiago, and then she took his mech. She did some minor repairs, and she was able to bring that mech back, following Helena's voice, and save Mei Yin. So the duo was able to fix all the other mechs. They got all four mechs all fixed up, right? They made this mega mech. They were only able to pilot it. I think they said about 75% efficiency. So it was not quite fully efficient like Santiago had designed, but they were able to get it rocking and rolling. Diana, remember, she was a fighter pilot before all of the crap happened with the Element Wars. So she knows how to pilot these machines. She was able to pilot almost the entire mech by herself, and she let Mei Yin handle the big old sword. So Mei Yin is swinging the sword around, doing all the fighting, whereas Diana's handling the piloting, keeping them safe, making sure they don't tank too much damage. And they managed to hurt the crap out of the King Titan. They put a big old X across his chest and really messed him up. So once she realized she could respawn Diana, at this point she started trying over and over and over again. She was trying to figure out more people that she could resurrect. And each time she tried, she would watch, a beach bob get eaten by a raptor or pinned down by a dilo or something like that. And each time she would try and she would fail. She was not able to bring these people back. She couldn't figure out what she was doing wrong. What was the missing piece? So she became the one who waits. She was the last ever Homo Deus, this ascended um, being that is beyond humanity, the creature that is basically oh, Tyrant's dipping out. It's 3:30 in the morning. Holy crap. Thanks for staying so long, Tyrant. Holy God, have a great day tomorrow. Good Lord. Um so she is the last Homo Deus. She's the one who, remember these people, the art guardians that stepped up in an effort to watch over the people that are on the ark and help guide them in a way that will make them evolve quicker is the words that I'm looking for. And in the past, remember they had these giant pods full of people. So they were just dropping down basically recloned people that didn't have memories. And if they did, they were implanted. But she was able to actually eventually figure out, she's alone with this data forever. She's going to eventually figure it out. If you've ever seen Sword Art Online, picture Yui. She is now Yui. She's locked into the server there. She can go through all of the data forever. She's got, I don't know what's bigger than a petabyte or whatever is beyond terabytes, but it's way, 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 way bigger than that. She's got a disgusting, you know, terabytes per square millimeter of information coming in at her, and she's able to pick apart that code, and over the course of time she's able to figure out how to help these people respawn. She encouraged all of them to push on. She was that voice in the back of their head. She was telling them to build when it gets cold. She was telling them to fight to protect themselves, to tame these dinosaurs, to learn from the world around them. She knew that we would all die. She gave us endless chances. She figured out how to bring us back, and it's a fun little thing. Nettie sort of theory crafts a little bit. When you respawn, when Helena lets you respawn and gives you your body, you have the same body, right? Because we have the same character, we look the same. But are you the same person? Do you have the same memories? Or each time you respawn, are you a new person that's given a new chance by Helena? So that's for you to decide, and that's how you want to play the game. But personally, I think that's kind of fun. So I had never thought of it that way, but I am now viewing it each time. I'm going to play my life in the game very sacred. And when that person dies, I'm going to think of a new personality quirk to give the next respawn. Like, um, you know, Joe Daddy and Jericho make the joke and they make fun of me all the time because I quite often play a vegetarian character. I am absolutely not a vegetarian in real life, but I am a Buddhist and I probably should be a vegetarian, but I'm not very good at life. I'm still learning. It's my first time. So I play a vegetarian quite often, but maybe it would be cool to play a vegetarian and then when I die, maybe I'll respawn as a caveman who is only a carnivore. And then when I die again, maybe I'll respawn as a fisherman who only eats fish, or, I can find a new quirk to have with each respawn as long as you're not dying every 10 seconds. And I feel like that would be a fun, fresh twist on the game, especially if you like role playing. Um, yeah, but anyway, she encouraged us to continue on and not give up. She knew we were gonna die. She kept guiding us all, and she's guiding us to help Mei Yin and Diana to help save the Earth. Now, she dubs us being the survivors, as the ones who try again. We're gonna die over and over and over. You're gonna fall off a ledge. You're gonna break your back. You're gonna fall in the volcano and burn to a crisp. You're gonna get picked off by an RG. You're gonna get farted on by a poison wyvern. In For the love of God, you're probably going to die in the ocean a million times and it's going to be horrible every time. But she's going to let you come back with that knowledge of that death and you're going to get to try again. Now, that sounds cliche, but it's poetic, man. We're the ones who try again. That's not only us as survivors in the game, but as a community in general. People who play Ark, you get arced, you know, you get incited, you have things happen that the world just knocks you down sometimes, man, but we just refuse to quit. We're the ones who try again. We're going to get back up. We're going to play the game. You never quit Ark, you just take an extended break. So I noticed at this point that Helena keeps referring to herself in the third person. She keeps referring, as Helena would do this, and she feels as if, I get the vibe that she feels like she's a totally new organism, that she realizes she is no longer the Helena that we knew, and that walked the arcs, but now she is this Homo Deus creature, and HLNA, whatever you want to call it, she is now something else. But she still refers to the Earth as our world, though, which leads me to believe that from the get-go, the Homo Deus, the first people from the United Republic of Earth that had agreed to ascend themselves to become what Helena is now. They were the voice in Helena's head telling her to explore, to learn about the dinos. The voice in Santiago's head telling him to craft the mechs to keep themselves alive. The voice in Mei Yin's head telling her to tame. Like, these were the people that sacrificed themselves to become that guiding light. And although the initial survivors viewed them as evil, I kind of view them as good. They they were doing the wrong thing for the right reasons, and I don't like it, but I can understand that, and that makes them a relatable villain in a way. So at the end of the day, I kind of appreciate the people that are the overseers of the ark. And although eventually, the overseer is an extremely corrupted form of the Homo Deus, and it's all consuming and evil at that point. So that's a little bit different. But the Homo Deus and the construct of what I am understanding they are because of Helena, I'm all for him, man. I think from what I know now, I do not view them as the bad guys. I thought it was like these evil aliens trapped us here and we have to kill the alien overseer to get out. But no, now I kind of feel it as we are. There was the Homo Deus that was trying so hard to help us get off the island, and so many people failed, so many people died. It had to try so many times because it didn't have the ability to respawn them with the knowledge they had. So it was starting over every single cycle of Survivor, and eventually went cuckoo like Mr. Meeseeks did in that episode of Rick and Morty, and just lost its crap. So I consider it like a mercy killing, kind of like Rockwell was a mercy killing as well, because he was a scientist who had good intentions but got poisoned by the idea of power. So I mean, these are all very, very human ideals. Isn't this a freaking deep world for this little dinosaur sandbox? Y'all thought you just wake up in your underwear and ride dinosaurs and build little huts and throw sticks at each other. But here I am rambling for an hour about how, you know, there's a lot of stuff going on here, man. It's an amazing world. Wildcard did a phenomenal job fledging out this beautiful world, and if you play through it and if you explore it, you can figure out the story for yourself. And it's really hard to piece together when it's in a chaotic order like that. But go watch Night of the Noodles video, man. It'll change your world on the way you look at this game. I swear to you. Um, so when you, as a survivor, beat extinction, you get the key of Gaia. This is basically one that it lets you know the key is what returns all of the arcs back to the Earth, okay? So the Titans themselves were keeping all of the arcs off of extinction, which is Earth. Earth went extinct, and once you get that key, it allows the obelisks to, or not the obelisk, the entire arc per se, to crash back down. So they don't crash down in this chaotic, destroy the earth type of thing. They come down, they land, they reintegrate with the earth, and then Helena lets you know that the arcs have come home. Home being the key word there. They have all the plants, the animals, the humans, the seeds, everything you need to repopulate the entire earth to allow it to spread, grow, thrive. She's going on, man, about how all of this stuff is going to cure all of the remaining element pollution. Um, and as they go down, the outer boundaries there, the bubble, if you will, around the arcs, you see the bubble dematerialize and go down, and then things begin to spread off of the arc. You see humans, rexes, mammoths, parasaurs, all the things walking through this portal together, and it's a beautiful image, man. The sun rises, and when the sun rises on the planet for the first time, it doesn't light on fire. So by completing through to the island, or no, I'm sorry, completing aberration to the island, to scorched earth, to extinction, I guess, would be the canonical way, if I'm understanding it correctly, to play through like Helena did. But there's really no incorrect way. However you want to role play it, whatever arc you get started off on, you got to make your way to the end, to extinction. And if you can beat all of the Titans on extinction, that is literally how you beat the game. You reunite the world and you save Earth. So if you want to play the game, quote unquote, to completely beat it and save the world, you got to play through all the way and then beat extinction at the end. So that is basically my interpretation of the lore for this game that we all know and love. I highly doubt many of you made it this far. So if you managed to listen all the way to my ramble, I want you to comment pasta sauce, but I doubt anybody did. So, Kay, love you. Bye.